And also wondering if you have any thoughts on Mayor Bill de Blasio saying today that he'd like to host a ticker tape parade of sorts once this is all over to honor the healthcare workers. Does New Yorker have any?
Frankly, that sounds like a good idea to me. When it's all over, it sounds like a great idea. They deserve it. They're warriors. They've done an incredible job.
Thank you, Hannah Kerr, for that song title, Warrior, for that inspirational song for our healthcare workers. I recently sent that bumper to two healthcare friends of mine to play when they're on that 15th hour of tragedy, working the tragedy of the pandemic. Meantime, on the ground in New Orleans, one of the metropolitan areas hit hardest by the coronavirus, Annalise DeWolf, an emergency medicine physician at the University Medical Center of New Orleans, says after working her long medical shift, she works overtime alongside her husband, Devin, and a slew of volunteers to provide meals to hospital workers. That movement is Feed the Frontline, NOLA, which the DeWolfs co-founded with a group of community members. Their goal is simple: keep local restaurants in business and frontline medical workers healthy and fed. Nothing fosters a feeling of optimism like a delicious meal and a full belly, DeWolf says. The Feed the Frontline team is really a small neighborhood group of volunteers. It's made of everyone proud of the community we have. For DeWolf, some of the most harrowing moments have involved those key end-of-life decisions for her patients. While these are everyday realities for ER physicians in the age of the coronavirus, everything is so much more difficult. The hardest experiences have been discussing with individuals that decision to place them on ventilators and get their next of kin information, knowing they may not come off the machine and may not survive or speak for themselves again, DeWolf shares. These always are difficult conversations, but they have become more frequent. It's further complicated by not being able to involve the families in person due to infection control and safety procedures in hospitals. The pandemic has ravaged black communities in Louisiana, where 7 out of 10 patients killed by COVID-19 are African American. And in New Orleans, a significant number of people live under the poverty line. At her hospital, DeWolf sees many underinsured individuals at risk for poor health outcomes. This revelation is not new. Low socioeconomic status in these metropolitan areas where tourism thrives, we see higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, which hence the popular term comorbidity. The presence of one or more additional conditions concurring with a primary condition. This comorbidity is the socio group has led to preventable death for many years in Louisiana. What perpetuates this calamity is these tourism employees who are our essential workers who don't have the ability to social distance, have their early testing, be diagnosed, and get the treatments that they need to stay alive. With more than half of New Orleans, 152,700 households are struggling to get by. with folks either living in poverty or falling into a working class with little cash and fewer assets to their name. DeWolf says, it's thus not surprising to see a disproportionate number of individuals of color and lower income people suffering from severe illness and death. In Michigan, another badly hit state, MedStar emergency medical technician Penny Rosenblad is just trying to keep up with the fluidity of the situation at hand. The sheer volume of death that EMTs must witness every day understandably takes a toll, but it's all the more impossible to bear when it happens close to home. The most terrifying part of this pandemic is when a healthcare provider dies. Rosenblad says, I'm sad whenever anyone loses a loved one, especially so senselessly. However, when it's one of your own, it really hits you because at any moment you may not get to go home from work, she says. Now, this is my opinion. You don't have to be a financial advisor to know what areas that will feel as if they are walking through the valley of death. Psalm 23, right? For instance, the oil industry. Seeing negative prices for a barrel of oil the last few days, I still can't wrap my head around that one, like North Dakota. Yeah, they're in the oil industry, refining business, jobs that just fell off the cliff, but they're not devastated by COVID-19. Now, the city that worries us now is the city of Detroit, that lost the automobile industry. Has similar socioeconomic as New Orleans, especially the heartbreaking story of the 5-year-old daughter of 2 Detroit first responders. Became the youngest person in Michigan to die from the coronavirus, the Detroit News reports. LaVerandria Herbert, the mother of Skylar Herbert, told the publication about her daughter's death on Sunday. Skylar tested positive for COVID-19 in March and later developed a rare form of meningitis and brain swelling, the newspaper reported. Skylar received care at Beaumont Health in Royal Oak, Michigan, and was at first showing signs of improvement, but then her condition started going downhill. We decided to take her off the ventilator because her improvement stopped. The doctors told us that it was possible she was brain dead, and we basically just knew she wasn't coming back to us, Herbert told the Detroit News. Now, the loss of a child at any time, under any circumstances, is a tragedy. We are heartbroken that COVID-19 has taken the life of a child. We here at Resurrecting Lives podcast at KLRN Radio extend our deepest sympathy to Skylar's family and all others who have lost a loved one to this virus. Michigan has lost residents ranging from ages 5 to 107 due to COVID-19. While children are not as likely to develop severe symptoms of coronavirus or die from it, young people are not immune to the disease, and even young children can get sick. Michigan has confirmed at least 32,000 cases of coronavirus and more than 2,400 deaths in the state. Detroit area has been especially hard hit, with over 7,700 confirmed cases and 629 deaths as of Monday the 20th, according to the city's health department. As I segue into the next critical profession during the midst of this show, we can't forget the others out there, like the home health aides, nannies, and other care workers that are stepping up amid the hardship. But in the meantime, let's listen to Blake Sheldon while I put my thoughts together. When New York started shutting down in the midst of pandemic, Maguetta St. Jean's first thought was that now more than ever she had to be strong, especially for her patients. I had to be strong and take life by its horns. I knew at this time, now, I'm needed more than anything, said St. Jean, a home health aide who has been working with Royal Care in New York City since last December. Caring for others has been a lifelong passion of St. Jean's, who was previously a nanny for children with autism and a patient companion for older patients with autism at the Long Island Jewish Hospital. Home health aides help patients who need to stay at home with a variety of things, including preparing meals, bathing, and light housework. These infirm and elderly patients are vulnerable populations, so aides are required to take additional steps during this time as the virus, commonly known as the novel coronavirus, is widely contagious. Driven by compassion, just as important as the physical health and safety protocol St. Jean's abides by, donning a mask and gloves, sanitizing, not sitting while she commutes by subway or train, is the emotional support that St. Jean provides the patients she helps during this time. Their reactions in general have been quite frightening, unfortunately, she said. St. Jean currently cares for one patient with dementia and the other with Alzheimer's, and watching the news has become a great source of fear for them in recent weeks. Her own level of calmness and presence becomes a barometer for the patients, having great influence over their emotions. So St. Jean says she has been driven by compassion more than ever at this time in order to stay present for them. I make it a priority for me to come in at a time like this and put away all my gadgets, books, and newspapers and just be fully present with them going through this and being sensitive to the emotions and how they feel about it, she explained. Just today, she visited a patient, and after fixing breakfast and taking his medication as usual, he got very upset at the television, and she quickly switched the program to something lighter that let him remember the good old days. It's something that's worrisome with their psychological, mental, and emotional states. It's just not doing tasks and getting them ready for their day. But sometimes patients do want the news, and St. Jean says does not want to keep them in the dark, and sometimes dementia patients need to be reminded why they should not leave the house. She will sit with them and read the news together, trying to make it a calming and enlightening experience rather than a stressful one, or keep them in the dark about bad news. Even if they're quarantined, I like to let them know they're not the only ones going through it, and there's a lot of activities that you can do at home. Even if you want to be out or just want everything to be back the way it was, St. Jean said. St. Jean is one of hundreds of aides in the city who continue to commute to visit homes of homebound, often elderly patients who need care. I feel honored to be part of this and help and push America through, she said. These stories are so intriguing. You get them from a side you don't hear about. Okay, have the heart to help one another. Prasad Salita, another home health aide with Royal Care, has actually had a patient who tested positive for COVID-19. On the 23rd, I went to work and saw that my patient was not feeling good, Salita said. The patient seemed feverish, and her temperature turned out to be 102 degrees and had to go to the ER because it was the contagious CCP virus. Salita could not go to the emergency room with the patient. Later that day, Salita got a call from the patient's niece telling her the patient tested positive for COVID-19. It was shocking news, but Salita was not very moved because she had been keeping up the news and knew how pervasive the virus has been. She felt no fear for herself. Salita ended up having no symptoms, so hospitals told her she did not need to be tested but to self-isolate for 14 days. Since then, the patient has been at the hospital and is currently on oxygen. And Salita communicates with her regularly by phone and has daily calls with her patient's niece. Salita returned to work on April 6th after being restless due to do so I feel 100% fine, she said with a laugh. I need to get back to work. I would like to get up out of my bed and get on out there with my job. Selita has a passion for helping others ever since she helped take care of her brother as a child and feels especially called to work with the elderly. She says her support system through this time has been her frequent calls with her many family members. She hopes others can help each other out during this time as well, so as not to be overcome by fear. To be honest with you, I'm sad. I know a lot of people going through a lot, and if there's one thing everybody could come together to do right now is just to have the heart to help one another, she said. We never know what's going to come today, what's going to come tomorrow. I won't stress over it, but the news is very sad, and my heart goes out to all the family members that lose their loved one, Selita said. So home aides are also essential businesses during this time. So let's hear from the owners of these nanny companies. Okay, we have Katie Proviziano. She says, have never predicted in my life that it would be like this. Founder of Westside Nannies, the largest nanny agency in Los Angeles, things have been changing constantly since February, and Proviziano feels like she's working 3 jobs now as she keeps up with updating regulation and passing on information and best practices to all the nannies and families in her network. We've seen such dramatic changes in our business, Proviziano said. Her agency provides services across the board from babysitting to part-time, full-time live-in, and many families have requested their nannies to switch to live-in so they can self-quarantine together, which is generally safer, but also because nannies are not considered essential workers in California right now unless they are either live-in or working for parents who are essential infrastructure workers like ER doctors. Check out that red tape, huh? Changes began even before state mandates were settled on, with uncertainty in parents working from home and changing their regular schedules. Then schools closed. And then that was huge, Proviziano said. Some parents could work from home, but some wouldn't. And not everyone can work from home and handle childcare as well. And then about a week after that, the governor said, don't expect schools to open again. Your kids probably won't physically be in school until the fall. And that was like a bomb that dropped across every single parent's radar. It was such a stark reality. And I think families are just wondering, how am I going to work myself? How do I work while taking care of my kids, while making sure they're doing their virtual schoolwork, she said. And then at a point, the stay-at-home order is going to be lifted, and parents are going to be able to go into an office, but yet their kids are still not going to be able to go to school. Summer tends to bring in an uptick in child care need anyway, and California is currently dealing with a child care conundrum, as most facilities can operate. Just try social distancing small children. So now we're seeing families saying, I need to find a nanny from now until the fall, which is a much longer time period. And it's also much higher cost for families because you require care longer, Proviziano said. Not every family who needs it can afford childcare, and business has decreased as a result. Many parents are working at home and foregoing nanny services, or have been furloughed or lost their jobs and cannot afford childcare anymore. Many people in the industry are out of our job. They're worried. They're scared about everything that's going on. But we're also seeing such bravery, Proviziano said, of the nannies. They're really stepping up and accepting that there's going to take care of the kids while the moms and dads are out fighting this thing. It's important that kids aren't sharing the fear, Proviziano said, which is something the agency talks about. We talked about how to talk about this age appropriately, and also the big thing is not have the kids sense the fear and the anxiety that we're all experiencing. Kids shouldn't have that burden on them, Proviziano said. Jacqueline Castro is a nanny for a family in LA where the mom is an ER doctor and the dad is an acupuncturist. Castro has been focusing on creating new routines for the second grader she takes care of. He's super smart, Castro said. He's aware of what his parents do and what his mom is dealing with. He knows what a virus is, what a pandemic is. He even asked me, are you afraid of my mom? Are you afraid of me? Are you afraid of my house? And I told her I'm not afraid, but I need to take extra precautions. So I'm extra aware where we're at, what we're doing in the house, and how clean we're being. He is just like every child. They feed off their parents' energy, and a lot of parents are stressed out because this is a new for everyone. Everyone is learning how to adjust, and they can feel that anxiety. Children can just feel that, she said. Usually when mom gets home, they see her enter the house in her scrubs and greet her with a hug. Now the scrubs don't enter the house at all. She changes in the garage where there's an extra set of clothes, and Dad opens all of the doors for her until she makes it into the shower. So we don't even see her until she's done with all of that, and I feel like that takes 30 to 40 minutes, she said. Everyone is aware of new routes and patterns in the house, and Castro has a set of nanny clothes she only wears at work as well, and her shoes stay outside. She's not allowed to come into the little boy's room. We have to go and out like it's a very, very different now. Castro's own schedule has changed dramatically as well. She is not living with the family, but her hours have doubled as her mornings used to be free while the boys were in school. But now his mother is working many, many hours than usual. Castro is a certified teacher and normally spends mornings preparing a curriculum, and now she spends it at the family's house with the boy while the parents are at work. We have a different kind of routine now, Castro said. I basically have to resort to pure creativeness. This is how we're going to come up with sounds and instruments. This is the next arts and crafts activity, and this is how I'm going to keep creative and just keep some kind of stability in his life. He's missing his regular schedule. He's missing his teachers, his friends, his regular piano, and all these things he's had, and he's aware. And I think that affects a lot of children at home, she said. We try to keep a curriculum and a schedule, and always something that's just like we always did. We always have lunch at this time. We always have recess. This is piano time. Castro says she is the strict teacher, sort of nanny, always there to provide academic structure. But during these times, she has found herself trying to play a more comforting role. Because I'm aware of his feelings, and I'm aware he might have some kind of fear for his parents or his friends, so I'm finding myself being more nurturing, she said. Now she might watch a show together with the child, even though she would never have done that before. I think parents are feeling guilty because they're letting their kids have iPads and TV time, and I think it's perfectly fine. I'm the one who never did that, but I now needed to give him some kind of sense of comfort, and we can still go together and do this. It's okay. I think it's part of what he needs right now, and maybe all of us. We all need something that makes us feel better. For Castro, being with the child and coming up with activities to go do together has been a grounding force during this crisis. That makes me feel good. The fact that we're laughing on a daily basis with little games and scavenger hunts just to keep us both going, that keeps me going every day. Children's laughter, she said. That reminds me of this song, High Hopes, to end out the show. All right, it's getting 0 dark 30 for the show, and before I relax, never, and go into rack ops mode, go to Sergeant Dave Matthews at gmail.com. That's SGTDaveMatthews at gmail.com. For suggestions for the next podcast, contact, and tell me if you like the music that I just put into the show, and go to my Facebook page, and you better like it. All right, all one word. Now remember the fallen, all one word. And until all our troops come back from Afghanistan, I will see you tomorrow night, Friday night. Yeah, that's right, 8 o'clock p.m. That's the spin-off from this show called Resurrecting Lives. The show's lineup is in alphabetical order, so 18th to the right. You got to scan to the right to find it. Well, share it with your patriotic friends for this former ground pounder, would you? I appreciate that. All right. Fall out, pop smoke out, and enjoy the rest of this great song. Thank you, Dave Bray, a Marine himself, allowing this on the Remember the Fallen show on KLRNradio.net.